This isn't an argument against call centres. It's an argument for understanding customer demand. You know, you will be amazed that we don't train people in call centres in why customers call. Typically, in the UK, in financial services, for example, it takes 8 weeks to train someone in a call centre. Can you imagine that? 8 weeks. You're going to be trained for 8 weeks in all of our products, all of our procedures, all of our IT systems. How are you going to feel day 1, week 9? You'd be scared to death, wouldn't you? People who take the systems approach study demand. They sort out demand from high frequency to low frequency. This is value demand. This is why we're here. Okay? And we're going to train you. We get you in the training room. We're going to train you in the high frequency predictable demand stuff we're going to get a lot of. And in 2 weeks you're working because you get a lot of this and you're trained to do it and you're confident. You're also trained to identify the things you're not capable of doing. And when they occur, you pull help. So your rate of learning increases rapidly. And we get rid of all the activity measures because they're of no value whatsoever. You know, in financial services, some companies who love activity measures, they talk about should take times. You've ever heard that expression, should take time? And this is like the standard time. I get chief executives that I work with to go around sort of doing thought things to prompt learning. So in the very early stages in this company, I said to him, go around the place and just say to all the managers, we don't want should take times, we need does take times, and then walk away. Because it will just leave a thought that will make their head go zzz. Because if the boss is saying that, I better fucking understand what he's talking about, you know. There's nothing, I've kind of learnt as an interventionist, there's nothing wrong with using coercion as a tactic. Back offices. We think it's a good idea to have back offices. And do you know where the idea of back offices came from? This is Robert Chase in the Harvard Business Review in 1978. You know, he took the view, as most service organisation managers do, that, you know, what we're about in service is sweating the assets, sweating the labour. You know, we worry about how much work is coming in, how many people have I got, and how to get them to do stuff. All that's wrong. So the problem with service, he said, is that, you know, you're trying to do that, you're trying to sweat the assets, and the bloody customer comes in and interrupts your people. So, this is what he says. So what we're going to do is we're going to find out what they want in the front office, then decouple the customer from the service and send it electronically off to the back office. Now we can sweat the bloody assets. That's what they do. That's what a back office is about. And in the back office, they work on that kind of core paradigm. How much work is there? How many people have I got? How long are they here to do stuff? And everywhere I've seen where we've created back offices, we've seen the same phenomenon that we saw in the front offices, an increase in the volume of activity. It should be a signal, but they don't treat it as a signal, so they specialise the work, they outsource the work, they lean on their people to do things faster, and that just creates more work. Wrong. I mean, give you an example. In the financial services sector, I have a client who used to have a front office for all new business, and then 144 people in back office positions, some in the UK, some in India. Any demand that came in when they studied it, the managers learned, could be broken into as many as 9 separate tasks and sent off to various back office departments. The managers were assuming that those 9 separate tasks would arrive in the right places. The people there would have the right skills, they do them in the standard times and within the service level agreements. And so they had to study for all of these that we do that to. How many go back clean? Can you guess the answer? Zip. Zip. You see, now if they've studied that, they're going to get interested in a better way, aren't they? But if you walk in and say that's what's happening, they'll get into doing the wrong thing righter. You understand? Let's improve the rules. Wrong. The back office phenomenon has been so bad here in continental Europe that they've now invented the middle office. Have you heard of this? It tickled me. How absurd. How absurd. You see, all these managers are working on that core paradigm. How much work is coming in? How many people have I got? How long do they take to do stuff? It is wrong. Just wrong. I mean, you can't dress it up. Which way do you want wrong? It ignores the nature of demand. That's the first mistake. There's 3 mistakes here. It ignores the nature of demand. You need to study demand. If your system's full of failure demand, it's under your control, it's destroying your capacity, it's a signal the service design is wrong. It's a big lever for change. You can't get rid of failure demand without redesigning the service. To redesign the service, you've got to study value demand, the nature of the demand from customers. What are they calling in about? Because that's how we're going to design the system. We're going to build that expertise into the place where the customer's demand hits. It's really as simple as that. The second fundamental error with the core paradigm is holding people accountable for the work they do. You've got to do a call in 2.5 minutes, or you've got to do a piece of work according to the standard times. It ignores variation. We've already talked about that. That's why you need does take times, not should take times. If you hold people to account with arbitrary measures, they learn to do anything to meet the arbitrary measures. And that is not the same as serving the customer. It's really as simple as that. Indeed, you need the people who are doing the work, controlling the work, not with measures of their activity, but measures that relate to the purpose of the service from the customer's point of view. And the third fundamental error is if you do anything to stop the system absorbing variety, and the first 2 things will stop the system absorbing variety, then your costs are going to go up. And this, I suppose, is where we get to lean. Lean. I hate that word. I hate that word. Who invented the word lean? I'm sorry? No. Wrong. You couldn't be more wrong. Who invented? Let's try again. Who invented the word lean? I'm sorry. Speak up. Womack and Jones. Congratulations, but no cigar. Because it was actually John Krafchick who was working with Womack and Jones. If we want to get picky, I know some of you guys like to be picky. I suppose in your business you ought to be picky, don't you think? Anyway, but it was Womack and Jones and the book 1990, The Machine That Changed the World, that publicised the Toyota system as lean. How did Toyota think about that? Well, of course, he was dead by then. But what did he always say? He said, never give it a name. If you give it a name, the managers are expected to come in a box. But you see, I think this is what the Americans are good at, marketing. Most fads come out of America, don't they? And I think the Americans understand that managers always think change is about training and projects and tools. There's a massive market for tools. So hence lean. And it took off like wildfire, didn't it? How did Taiichi Ohno teach his managers? Did he train them in tools and give them projects to do against known problems? No. No. He stood them in the factory and encouraged them to study the factory to understand what the problems were. You see, it's the same as the housing repairs case. What you learn is the problems you really got are not the problems you think you have when you study. Ohno's favourite word was understanding. But what do these bloody lean toolheads do when they land in service organisations? One of the first things they do is standardise the work. You see, that appeals to conventional managers, doesn't it? Managers think standardisation, that's going to be a good thing to do. If we standardise, our costs will go down. Wrong. If yours is a service organisation, as every service organisation I've ever worked in is, that has variety, and you standardise the work, what do you do to the ability of your system to absorb variety? It goes down. Therefore, what's going to happen to your costs? Up. Brilliant. You see, they've done lean in our tax office. Brilliant. Brilliant. It's going to die because it's CAC. It'll just take a bit of time. There are two arguments for economy of scale. The first argument is the less of a common resource argument. So if, for example, we're going to share services or put all work into one place, then we might need fewer managers, fewer IT systems, fewer buildings. This is an obvious truth, but it ain't that easy. I heard on the radio last week a guy talking about how the fact, they've shared a service between 3 organisations, and he proudly said, and we've saved a lot of money because we went and bought one IT system. And I thought, oh, no. This is like when your wife goes to the sales and tells you how much she's saved. I go, no, you stupid woman, you haven't saved anything. You spent money. And that's what these people have done. They have bought an IT system. And they think it saved them buying 3. But if you study, you might learn that the way they're using the IT systems is CAC. They don't need them. Do you understand? It ain't just as simple as that. The second argument for economy of scale is the economy through industrialisation. And this economists have argued this. It goes back to Adam Smith. On the back of a £20 note in Britain, there's a picture of Adam Smith and the amazing productivity you get when you specialise work in the manufacture of pins. Well, do you think that's generalisable? Is that universally true? And then, of course, we had Henry Ford's mass production system where we had specialised work and standardised work. And, of course, Henry Ford brought us the 5-day man. You know what the 5-day man was? They had such a high turnover of workers because they were all pissed off that if they went away and they didn't come back for 5 days, we assumed they're never coming back. And we laugh, but that's what we've done in our service organisations. We outsourced this kind of, sweat your assets, sweat your people model to India, call centres. They got an even higher turnover of staff in India, despite the fact that we're paying them, king's wages. That's how bad it is. But because in manufacturing we've taken that route, people have taken the idea that we can do this in service. So the second argument for economies of scale is all about economy through design, standardisation, specialisation, and it's not true. When you standardise and specialise in service design, you stop your system absorbing variety and costs go up. Economy comes from flow, not scale. So how do you design? The basic archetype for a transactional service organisation, you'd pick out from what I've been describing here, because it applies in the housing repairs case and the other cases I've talked about. I've just talked about transactional systems this morning. By understanding demand, value demand, we know what expertise we need to put right at the front of the flow. That's what we've got to design for. These people with the expertise can absorb that demand, solve the customer's problems. We want to know that does take time. As we improve the system, the does take time falls. We improve further. When they get something they're not trained for, they keep the job pull help. That's how pull works in service design. We measure how much capability we have to solve problems at the first point in the transaction, confident that the more we do that, the more our costs will go down because cost is in flow. Okay, anything that has to go beyond, like in housing repairs, we measure the true end-to-end time, we measure the achievement of purpose from the customer's point of view. We put all of these measures in the hands of the people who do the work, because that brings their ingenuity to work in continually improving the system. And you can't do it without IT. So my message to you today is, if we're going to improve organisations and we're going to use IT as a part of that, which we always do, the first step is understand it as a system, get knowledge. The second step is improve it without touching the IT. And the third step is pull IT into that design. You do get less, but you get lots more. Thank you for your attention. Good morning.